to the east coast of Australia. Oh my gosh. So I just had to do that because there's a game that we played before. It was a hunting game and that was on repeat and I couldn't stop it. I had to completely shut my computer off and then uninstall the game to make it quit. But in all reality, we're going to be talking today about the Dyatlov Pass incident. I don't know anything about it. This is Big Skilly's little story here. I guess it has something to do in the 50s or something in Russia. I'm not quite sure. So we'll just sit back, relax, and let old Big Skilly take us on a little trip.
All right. So, first part is the mountain that waits. So, the Ural Mountains rise like the spine of the sleeping giant, stretching north through endless snow. In winter, their valleys are buried under layers of ice that glitter like broken glass beneath the pale sun. The wind there never truly stops. It whispers, it moans, it screams. Damn
The
it.
wind never stops. It almost sounds like Wyoming or North Dakota, but
And it
and it
moans.
moans. I mean, that's something I don't know. I never heard the wind moan before.
Oh, and before I go any further, like this story is a true story and actually happened.
So, no
Um,
disrespect to the people that heard the wind moan.
um, Locals say it carries the voices of those who never came back. To the Mansi people who lived in the Urals for centuries, one mountain among the rest bears a name said with respect and distance: the Kholat Saikal, the mountain of the dead. They never hunted there, they never camped there. They said the mountain was patient, it waited. And in the winter of 1959, 9 strangers would come to test it.
9 strangers. So
Nine
9
strangers.
strangers just like, "You know what? Yeah,
We're going on a
we're going
trip
on a trip.
in our favorite rocket ship.
Going 95. We're
The
we're
Ascent.
gonna fucking die."
Well, yeah. Um, um, it began like so many student expeditions in the Soviet era. A group of young adventurers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, led by 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. It's kind of hard to say. He was precise, confident, and brave. His friend said he could fix anything: a radio, a broken ski, even a mood. He planned the entire route himself, a 300-kilometer journey through the frozen heart of the Urals,
Uh,
ending at a
how
peak called
how f how
Orotun.
far?
300 kilometers, which I have no idea.
300 kilometers?
Mhm.
That's 186 fucking miles. I'm I'm pretty sure I'm not following somebody just shooting off the hip 186 miles. No,
Where's your sense of
it's
adventure?
not
We should do something like that and then do another
not in
podcast about
Death's
it.
Pass.
The team assembled in late January. There was, and excuse me if I pronounce these wrong, which I probably will, uh, Zinadea Kolomogrova, lively and sharp, her laughter carrying even through the cold. Lyudmila Dubinina, serious and headstrong, a true mountaineer's soul. Yuri Krovyanchesko, the Joker, always strumming a tune or cracking a joke. Rustem Slobodin, calm and disciplined, a natural athlete. Yuri Droshchenko, fiery and bold, once fought off a bear with a geologist's hammer.
A
Hmm.
geologist hammer. Have you ever seen Shawshank? Those fucking
Yeah,
geology hammers are tiny.
that's Russia, man. That's Russia
Gonna
for you.
fuck a bear up with a tiny pecker.
And then there was Nikolai Thibault, brilliant, cheerful, always sketching or taking notes. Alexander Kolatov, quiet intellectual fascinated by science and radiation studies. Semyon Zolotaryov, the outsider, 38 years old, a war veteran. The others called him Uncle Sasha. And finally, there was Yuri Yudin, the 10th hiker who would turn back after only a few days due to illness. He would be the only one to live.
Well, thank God.
Could you imagine being like, God damn, I dodged a bullet?
Thank God I got sick like a little bitch.
They were probably giving him shit too, like, you pussy.
Yeah. Fuck.
um, so they departed from Ivdel, a small mining town in the Sverdlovsk Oblast, on January 27th, 1959. Their sleds and backpacks piled high with food, skis, and journals. The train station photographs show their faces, smiling, frost already gathering in their hair, unaware they were stepping into legend.
And they're walking
Yeah, they're hiking, dude.
300 kilometers.
Yep.
No.
Their diary entries were full of optimism. Zena wrote, "The mood is cheerful. The guys sing, tell jokes. We are full of strength." They didn't know the mountain was already listening. The Frozen March. By January 30th, they had entered the wilderness. The trees thinned, the wind grew stronger, and snow began to fall in relentless sheets. They built fires when they could, shared vodka to stay warm, and sang old folk songs late into the
Fuck,
night.
I wonder how much vodka they brought with them to stay warm for
I would
300 miles.
I would have brought a lot. They, if I had to hike that long, I'd rather be drunk the whole time. They crossed the Lazva River, then the Ayuspia, icy ribbons winding through the forest. On February 1st, their navigation veered off course. They should have turned north toward Otorten, but instead they climbed the slope of Kolat Saikal, perhaps to make up for lost time. The decision sealed their fate. The wind howled up the mountain like a warning. The diaries that night were brief. Eager's final entry read simply, "We are on the ridge. The visibility is poor. The wind is strong. We can't go further." They made camp right there on the slope of the Mountain of the Dead. So, I don't know about you, but I'm not making a fucking camp on a mountain called Mountain of the Dead.
I ain't even fucking trying to climb it.
I ain't going near it.
Uh-uh.
The last camp. They pitched their large canvas tent on a patch of snow angled at about 23 degrees. It wasn't an ideal spot. Exp-
Just go slide down that fucking tent in your sleeping bag all the way to the
that would
bottom of the
suck.
hill.
Exposed, windy, and without the shelter of trees, but Dyatlov, ever the perfectionist, insisted on doing things properly. The tent was anchored with skis and poles, the stove assembled but not lit that night. They would save the fuel for the morning. Inside, they laughed and ate what they could: biscuits, canned meat, sugar, and tea. Someone played a mandolin, someone else took a photo. 9 young faces, rosy from the cold, eyes bright with the thrill of the journey.
You ever seen Without a Paddle?
Yeah.
You know how the easiest way to stay warm? Uh, Nut
Yeah.
to butt, baby.
Thanks for breaking glass for my kids' play. That photo, the last one ever taken, shows them smiling. By 9:30 p.m., the wind screamed outside. The temperature had dropped to negative 30 degrees Celsius. Uh, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
Negative
The
30?
sound, yeah, sound of snow shifting, sliding across the tent fabric was like the breath of something vast and ancient. Somewhere out there, beyond the howling dark, something cracked. A dull, heavy sound, like snow collapsing or maybe something else. They couldn't tell. Lai Lyudmila, according to her friends, hated sleeping in silence. She would often hum or whisper until she drifted off. Maybe she did that night too. At some point, someone heard a noise, a low, distant rumble, perhaps a shift in the snowpack, perhaps just the wind funneling through the valley. Then, confusion, panic, and movement.
Minus 22 Fahrenheit.
That ain't too bad. The next moments would never be fully known. What's certain is that the hikers cut open their tent from the inside and fled into the snow. They didn't grab their boots, they didn't take coats, they ran barefoot into the white night, and the mountains swallowed them whole.
There is nothing. I won't say nothing. Maybe the abominable fucking snowman that is gonna make me get out of my tent, negative 22 degrees, with not even any shoes on.
That's what baffles me about it. So this is my first time, like, actually reading about it, like, in full detail. Like, I kinda knew, like, the story of it, but, like, that just makes you think, like, what on earth actually
Maybe they
happened?
just went mad, you know?
I don't know, or someone took off with their food vodka,
Fuck.
and they were pissed.
Oh my god, but man, just to, like, get up, cut a hole in your fucking tent, don't even use the big ass door, and haul an ass with no shoes on.
But that means they were trying to get away from something.
Yeah, but inside of your tent, or is it outside on the like, what the hell? It's gonna have to
Who
be
knows?
it's gonna have to be really big to make me like, it's gonna have to be bigger than me.
Like, even if there was a bear or something, like,
Hey, you got, 4 or 5
he fought it
guys.
off with a hammer,
Yeah,
like, punch him.
fuck. Just fucking poke him in the eyes, kick him in the nuts.
The night of fear. The snow that night fell like dust from a broken sky, each flake catching the faint glow of the moon before vanishing into the dark. No one heard their screams, no one saw them stumble barefoot across the slope. Only the mountain, old, cold, and indifferent, bore witness. The footprints told part of the story. When rescuers later followed them, they would count 9 sets of tracks descending from the torn tent. At first, they were clear, small, close together, almost orderly. Then they scattered, disappeared into the drifts, and were gone. In the dark, the hikers had no light, no shelter. The storm smothered everything. The wind shredded voices before they could reach another's ear. Their bodies were bare to the elements, skin freezing faster than breath could condense. They ran toward the tree line, a faint shadow, a kilometer and a half away. And there, beneath the black skeletons of cedar and fir, they found momentary refuge. Someone, maybe Doroshenko, maybe Kravinsky, gathered kindling. The match flared weakly in the storm, then another, until a small fire burned at the base of the massive cedar tree. Two of them huddled close, feeding it desperately. The others scattered, perhaps searching for shelter, perhaps for each other. The cedar tree would later tell its own story. The lowest branches were broken, snapped 4 meters up, as if someone had tried to climb, perhaps to spot the camp, perhaps to escape from something else. And the ground beneath it would hold the first of the bodies. Ugh, dude.
Yeah.
I, I,
We're sponsored today by, Mountain Dew, whatever that blue shit is.
so the search begins. When the hikers failed to send their telegram on February 12th, no one worried at first. Bad weather, a slower pace, such delays were common. But by February 20th, families began to panic. They're like, we'll give it a couple weeks.
Well, yeah, because you gotta think, that's in the 50s, 59, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not like they had cell phones and fucking, house everybody had house phones or anything like that, so they're expecting them it's a 300-mile fucking hike. I mean, if you do 5, 10 miles a day, that's still gonna take a while, and there nobody's gonna think you're missing for a while.
Yeah, that's true. The Institute organized a search party of volunteers and students. Soon after, the Soviet military joined in soldiers, helicopters, and dogs combing the wilderness. On February 26th, a rescue team led by Mikhail Shervian spotted something strange in the snow, a half buried tent, its top just barely visible under a thin crust of frost. They approached cautiously, expecting perhaps to find it empty, or worse. When they pulled back the canvas, they froze. Inside were sleeping bags, neatly laid out. Boots lined the entrance, coats hung along the poles, a few knives were tucked into packs, a half eaten meal sat beside a tin of cocoa. Everything was in order, everything except for the gashes. The tent had been cut open from the inside, long slashes, ragged and frantic, as though someone had clawed their way out. There was no signs of struggle, no footprints of attackers, only the tracks of those who fled.
Huh.
Man, the first bodies. The trail led downhill toward the forest, about 500 meters away. Searchers found the cedar. Beneath it, two bodies lay side by side Yuri Dur- Doroshenko and Yuri Krivenchko. They were barefoot, half naked, skin blackened by frostbite, lips blue. The snow around them was trampled, marked by broken twigs and handprints. They had built a small fire just enough to keep death at bay for a little while. Their fingers were raw, their faces contorted, frozen mid expression as if in pain or fear. Some reports say Dorshenko's hands were burned. Others note that the firewood was gone, scraped from the cedar's bark. They had fought to stay alive and they had failed. Between the cedar and the tent, three more bodies were found Dyatlov, Kolmogrova, and Slobodin. They lay in a line as if crawling back to camp. Dyatltov's body faced uphill, his hands clutching snow. Zenadea's face was bruised, her lips split by the cold. Rustam had a fractured skull, but no sign of external trauma, as if something had struck him from within. They died trying to return, maybe thinking they could make it, maybe believing others were already dead. Still, four were missing. Could you imagine being the guy that turned back and like hearing all this?
Like, I mean, shit, buy a lottery ticket, man.
Yeah. The long wait. The searchers camped near the site for weeks, digging, probing the snow. The weather worsened and more storms rolled through. Days became identical white, gray, white again. The rescue logs describe eerie nights when the wind howled through the trees, carrying sounds that made men stare into the dark and tighten their grips on their lanterns. Locals from the Mansi tribe joined the search. They said prayers for the dead, burned pine branches to ward off spirits. One man reportedly told a soldier, "This mountain takes what it's owed." Then, on May 5th, when the snow finally melted enough to reveal the ravine, the last four bodies were found. Divina, Thibault, Brignoli, Kolotov, and Zolotrov. They were laying close together in a small stream bed, partially buried under 4 meters of snow. They had built a makeshift inn from branches and clothing, suggesting they had survived longer than the others. But their injuries were something no one could explain. When investigators uncovered Lyudmila Divina, they recoiled. Her ribs were crushed inward, five broken on one side, four on the other. Her eyes were missing, and her tongue was gone.
Well, I mean, couldn't that be rodents, birds?
I don't know, man. The ribs thing, probably not, though.
Yeah, but
Nikolai
uh,
oh, sorry.
dog, maybe? Some kinda coyote?
But they were buried.
Yeah, but, I mean, how long were they dead before they came, you know? So, if it kept snowing, of course they were gonna be buried, though.
Nikolai Thibault had a massive skull fracture, caved in as though struck by an immense force, but no sign of an external bleeding. Zolotrov, the veteran, had the same kind of rib trauma as Dubina, and Kolotov seemed the least damaged physically but was frozen mid movement, his head turned toward the others as if watching over them when the end came. None of them bore signs of a fight, no external wounds. Doctors described the internal damage as equal to a car crash. And one more thing, traces of radiation were found on their clothing.
Yeah, that's naturally occurring, maybe? Like norm? Naturally occurring radioactive material? I mean,
Yeah, it
you
might.
get norm on scoria, you know? You know that?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's crazy.
The lead investigator, Lev Ivanov, grew obsessed. He described the injuries as caused by a powerful force of nature unknown to man. Privately, he told colleagues he had seen strange lights in the sky during the search, orange spheres glowing over the mountains. Locals, too, spoke of fireballs that had appeared the same week the hikers vanished. Some said they were weapon tests, others swore they were not of this world. The investigation dragged on. Reports were classified. The case was quietly closed in May 1959 with a vague statement. The cause of death was an unknown compelling force that the hikers were unable to overcome. But no one believed it was that simple. Months later, when summer finally came to the Urals, the camp was still there, wind torn but intact, a silent shrine to unanswered questions. Rescue workers collected what remained diaries, cameras, broken gear. The final photos were haunting. Blurred faces, snow falling hard, the faint outline of trees through a lens fogged by cold. One frame, taken near midnight, showed glowing orbs in the sky. No one could explain it. Yuri Yudin, the only survivor, returned to the past years later. He stood before the tent site and wept, saying, "If I had not turned back that day, I would be there now. I would have known what happened, or I would never have come home."
Well, you probably would never came home, so good thing you weren't there. And all these strangers just deciding to go on this 300-mile hike.
I'd be like, "I'm gonna stay at home."
Yeah.
Part 3, The Unquiet Dead. The Autopsies. The morgue in Sverdlovsk was silent when the first bodies arrived. The doctors who unzipped the bags were met with sights they would never forget. These were not the broken, frostbitten victims of a simple storm. Their wounds told a darker story. Dyatlov, the leader, was found with his fist clenched, his teeth broken where he had bitten through his own lips. His body bore minor abrasions and bruises, but his expression was one of fierce resistance. Kolmogrova, the young woman with the fierce spirit, had a broken nose and a long bruise along her side. Her hands were scraped as though she had clawed her way uphill. Slobodin's skull was fractured, yet there was no wound on the surface. No cut, no gash, no swelling that would explain the force. All three had died of hypothermia, the others had not. When Dubina and Thibault were examined, the doctors grew pale. Dubina's chest was crushed, ribs broken inward, her heart displaced, her tongue was gone, and the tissue around her mouth was missing. It wasn't clear if it had been taken before death or after. Thibault's skull was shattered with a force that could only be compared to a car accident. Zolotov's ribs were snapped in a perfect pattern, his internal organs damaged beyond recognition, yet none of their skin was broken. It was as if the force had struck them had passed through without touching the surface. And then came the strangest finding of all: radiation. Traces of radioactive isotopes were found on their clothing, enough to register on a Geiger counter, but not enough to glow or cause burns. Still, it was enough to add another layer to the mystery, one that investigators quietly buried in classified files. When pressed, the coroner could only say their injuries are not consistent with a fall, nor with a human attack. They are the result of a force that I cannot explain.
It's crazy.
The official inquiry grew murkier with every passing day. Soviet authorities wanted answers, but not the wrong kind. Rumors of secret tests, weapons experiments, or radioactive contamination were not to reach newspapers. The lead investigator, Lev Ivnov, described an invisible pressure on the case, as if someone somewhere wanted it buried beneath the snow again. In his private notes, which surfaced decades later, he wrote, I have no doubt, hmm, excuse me, I have no doubt there was a strong external force that killed the group. I saw orange orbs in the sky during our search. So did the locals, but I was told not to pursue this. The files were closed in May 1959. The cause of death was written in a single infamous phrase: an unknown compelling force. No one was satisfied. No, no one could be. Theories that haunt. Over the decades, the Dyatlov Pass incident became a canvas for speculation. A thousand theories painted in frost and fear. Some are grounded in science, others tread the thin ice between reason and the supernatural. The first theory is an avalanche. The most widely accepted theory is that a slab avalanche occurred that night. A small, heavy plate of snow may have broken loose above the tent, collapsing part of it and terrifying the group into cutting their way out. Disoriented and panicked, they fled downhill, believing more snow would follow. Hypothermia claimed most, the rest fell into the ravine, their bodies crushed by compacted snow and ice. It explains much, but not everything. There was no sign of a large avalanche, no debris, and the slope was too shallow for such an event. Theory number 2, the infrasound panic. Some
Psychiatrists?
scientists proposed that high winds sweeping over the mountain created infrasound, low frequency vibrations below human hearing that induce nausea, dread, and panic. Disoriented by terror, the hikers might have fled the tent blindly, only to freeze before regaining reason. A compelling theory, yet the precision of their movements and the tense, orderly setup argue against madness. Then there's the katabatic wind. A newer explanation suggests a katabatic wind, sudden violent gusts that rush down mountain slopes with enough force to flatten tents and suffocate campers. This theory aligns with the panic, the flight, and the crushing injuries, but it cannot explain the missing tongue, the radiation, or the glowing lights. Another one is military testing. Others whisper of Soviet weapons experiments, parachute mines detonated in the air, their shockwaves inflicting internal trauma without external wounds. The orbs in the sky might have been flares or munitions, the radiation a side effect of weapons materials. If true, it would explain the secrecy, the classified files, and the pressure on investigators to close the case. Yet there are no declassified records proving such tests occurred there, only silence. The fifth one is the Mansi curse. The local Mansi people had long warned against trespassing on Kol Tsaikal. To them, the mountain was sacred or cursed. Some believed the hikers disturbed something ancient, something that demanded a price. It's superstition, perhaps, but even the searchers later said the forest felt wrong. They spoke of howling winds that sounded like voices and nights when their lanterns flickered without a cause. The unexplained lights. Witnesses hundreds of kilometers away reported glowing orange spheres crossing the Ural sky around the same time the hikers died. Could they have been meteor trails or something else entirely? The final photo from the hikers' cameras showed blurred lights against the dark, strange circular shapes drifting above the horizon. No one could say for certain what they were. Perhaps, as one investigator put it, whatever they saw in the sky made them run for their lives.
I don't know if that was it. Huh.
But it's crazy, like, there's so much, like, unknown
Yeah.
about it, and it's crazy of all the evidence they found. The survivor's shadow. Yuri Yudin, the 10th hiker who turned back due to illness, lived with the shadow of that mountain all his life. He attended the funerals, watched his friends buried under the Soviet flags, and sat through hearings that answered nothing. Years later, when journalists asked if he believed in the official avalanche explanation, he said softly, if it was an avalanche, it was not made of snow. He returned to the pass in his old age, standing before a memorial stone carved with 9 names. The wind moved through the trees like a whispering crowd. He left flowers, placed a photograph of the team, and wept. I still see them in my dreams, he said. They call to me, but I can never reach them. Yuri died in 2013, not knowing what happened.
Man, so I was looking up facts and stuff about this the whole thing while you were talking about it, and I don't know. It said the first bodies were found late February. Um, Others weren't discovered until May when the snow melted. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could have been like eaten on these, and
But they didn't have they would have been able to tell for sure.
yeah, but post mortem, uh, getting their tongue was removed inside their cheek. That's probably just like rats and shit, you know?
Yeah, but I think, like, their bodies were close together, so it would have happened to more than just one person.
But what if one of them lived and the other ones died and the one guy was hungry?
That's true.
Cannibalism, trying to stay
But
warm, trying to stay
I'm still
fed. Uh,
compelled about the injuries because there was nothing on the external.
yeah, and it says here that there was blood found in a woman's stomach, in one of their stomachs, with the one that was like found in a river or whatever. But a lot of that could be from a fall and some of them say that the whole avalanche slab is fake because there wasn't any proof of an avalanche. But I was reading where somewhere the people say that uh they didn't get there until weeks later, so an avalanche by then may not even have any evidence of an avalanche anymore. The snow got blown away or whatever. Or, I don't know. It's just it's fucking weird, and I guess that would be the one thing that would make me run out of the fucking tent is the goddamn avalanche, you know?
Mhm.
And it's not like it is on the movies. You're not outrunning a fucking avalanche. You're kind of fucked, you know? But but you can also have impaired judgment from cold stress, you know? So maybe they thought they heard something and they really didn't or whatever and ran out of the tent without grabbing their fucking shoes and their coats and shit. Maybe they should have lit that fire, instead of trying to save their fuel for the morning. I don't know. But the Soviet Union was notorious for half truths, covering up the truth, and not talking about shit. Just like, like Chernobyl, they say that only like 5 people died in Chernobyl when it was
Mhm.
hundreds and generations on generations? So I wouldn't really trust what the Soviet Union told me at all.
Yeah, and here it says, in 2019, the Russian government reopened the investigation, this time with new technology and less fear of political backlash. Dozens of scientists and mountaineers analyzed the slope, weather patterns, and snow density. In 2020, officials announced their conclusion that it was a small slab avalanche triggered by wind and snow accumulation had forced the hikers to flee. Their injuries, they said, were caused by falling into the ravine. Case closed again, but the mountain doesn't forget. Independent experts, including those from Switzerland and Sweden, ran their own simulations. Yes, they found that such an avalanche could occur. Yes, it could injure as described, but even they admitted something still doesn't fit. The timing, the lack of avalanche debris, the bizarre radiation readings, and everything that happened. The mountain keeps its secrets.
So what I see here is it also says in 2019, Russian officials reopened the case, and some later studies, 2021, revised the slab avalanche theory with refinements, a delayed slab. The idea is that the hikers had cut into the snowpack to level their tent, creating a weak layer underneath. Over time, wind-blown snow loading could push the slab into collapse. So, I don't know, and it's that these models try to account for internal injuries by simulating how even a modest snow slab could generate force on bodies pressed to skis, rocks, and buried beneath snow. Yet many researchers remain unconvinced, citing the missing body parts and some trauma remained poorly explained by that alone. But I mean, the missing body parts, some of that could be rodents and I don't know what they got out there. Wolves, you know, there's animals everywhere, and they're gonna feed. And they're usually gonna go for, like, the soft tissue. They're not gonna, try to like a rat's not gonna try to eat your stomach. It's gonna eat your eyes and your mouth and lips and shit to eat something easy to eat, right? But I don't know. I don't get and it's definitely like this one like UFO, Yeti, unexplained forces, like, get out of here.
You don't believe in any of that?
No, man, like, show me. People from Missouri, they have the show me state. Show me, you know? Uh, I don't know. It's a crazy thing, and it seems like you are notorious for picking stories that are unsolved, so we don't get any kind of,
That's what makes it
we don't get
interesting.
any reward at the end, and I was just stuck with what the fuck happened? And now I'm gonna be sitting here going down rabbit holes trying to
That's what I like to do.
trying to figure stuff out, but, um, I don't know. I think that the internal trauma, the fractured skull, broken ribs, and other internal injuries, um, I mean, that could come from some kind of avalanche, and how do you know that fresh snow didn't come and cover up the avalanche debris. But how did all these other people think that they can solve something that happened in 59 in 2019 or whatever, when weather patterns I don't think were really studied in 59, And then the radiation, it might just be norm, you know? It said it was very low, but it was picked up on a Geiger counter, which is what you detect radiation with, but it must have just barely been able to make the needle move.
So I'm curious about the pictures of the orbs, though,
Yeah.
because
I mean, maybe it was a meteor shower, like they said, or maybe it was the moon and like you remember, so when it's really cold in like North Dakota, you know how they get like sun dogs? Yeah,
hmm
you got the sun and then you got looks like another sun, the sun dog, maybe. I don't know if there's like a moon dog, but I don't know. It's crazy.
but I am looking at the picture of where their tent was, and it's not even that steep.
So I just looked it up and it says, yes, a moon dog is the nighttime equivalent of a sun dog. Appears as a bright spot on either side of a bright, full, or nearly full moon caused by moonlight refracting through hexagonal ice crystals and high, thin clouds, also called Senilia? I don't know. They look like the moon's companions or mock moons, often appearing within a 22-degree halo and less colorful than sundogs because moonlight is weaker than sunlight.
I kind of wish I hadn't looked up the pictures.
Oh, yeah? Why?
Some of them are of the bodies.
No. Uh, yeah? I don't know. No,
I
obviously.
still think it's interesting, though.
Yeah, no, for sure it is. Uh, and yeah, I just looked it up too, and yeah, they're all frozen to death, and uh, I mean, to me, I mean, it doesn't look like they're scared. It just looks like they just got frozen in time, you know? You know what I mean?
hmm
Like they just got frozen in time and face down, face up, buried underneath the snow, you know? So I don't know. But if they did dig their tent down, and then it could have a slab that was shifting and it's gonna take their tent out and they cut a hole through the tent. Maybe it was already taking the tent out, so they couldn't get through the front, So they cut a hole through the side of the tent. But who knows? The only people that know what happened are not here anymore. Um, I guess we can ask him on the other side of life, like, hey, what happened and why the hell did you decide to go on a 300-mile hike with random people in one of the most severe environments, you know? Why would you do that? I guess people are just more willing to take a risk, huh?
I guess.
Not I. Not gonna see me doing none of that. I mean, Give me a dog sled or a fucking, snowmobile for sure, let's go, but uh-uh.
Mhm.
Bring me my satellite phone,
CP.
uh, Elon Musk, uh, Tesla phone, you know? Yeah, but anyway, you got anything else?
Nope, I think that's about it. But the reason I chose that too is because I actually wanted to read, like, all the details about it because 'cause I've only heard, like, like, it was mysterious how they died, and
Yeah.
now we know, kind of.
The more you know. Do. Okay, well, I guess it's a wrap for episode whatever, you know. The Dyatlov Pass incident. Thank you for listening. Next time, I think we may do a kind of a question and answer session and maybe try to get some friends on also somehow, or it just might be me and old Big Skilly here, just kind of talking about the life we live and how we got where we are and what positives and negatives have came out of it. So we will see you on the next one and appreciate you listening.